Hello and welcome to Two Crones and a Microphone. I am Linda,
And I am Betty.
And I'm Sally.
and our dear sister Diane is back with us. We'll introduce her fully in a moment. We're cultural midwives, and our podcast is about shared wisdom through storytelling and research from us as experienced crones and friends. We offer experiences and spiritual practices for body, mind, emotion, and spirit to meaningfully connect with our beautiful earth, to help walk your talk and act from your heart's desire instead of fear. We want to share straight up a little bit of wonderful feedback on Fire as a Healer, our podcast number uh, 49, from a listener who watched us on YouTube. This listener said, "Thank you for the provoking discussion about the many aspects of fire. From the physical chemical combustion of materials to the emotional inspirational transformation of mind and spirit, your crucible overfloweth. Fire teases all the senses, and you certainly ignited glowing memories blazoned in my heart. Next time, I will experience that backyard campfire in a whole new light."
And
Thank
I
you.
love, yeah, I love that comment. I think it's
Yeah.
amazing and a wonderful segue into part two of what we think is going to be a three-part series that looks
Mm-hmm.
at fire. And today we really want to focus on fire as a change agent. We're going to address the element of fire in its aspect as change maker and also possible destroyer. We'll present tools both today and also in our next podcast to help us deal with the after effects of trauma, grief, anger, or shock, and offer practices around release that has to do with fire and fire as a change agent and destroyer. When we look around the world right now, the energy of fire shows its face everywhere. Most obviously, we've all heard about the devastation of the fires in California. But, when we look to at fire, and I know it's difficult when we talk and think about this, but fire as it relates to plane crashes, as it relates to the upcoming seasons when fire um, hits our landscape, and um, when we think about the earth, fire and the impact that it has on not just us as humans, but all of the animals and on the very earth itself. So we want to explore further thoughts about fire and looking at coping with some of the challenging aspects of fire in its aspect of destruction, because it can open us to healing if we look with, work at, talk about our feelings, and think about how to manage those changes. So I'm going to turn it over to Linda, who's going
Beautifully
to
put, Sally. Thank you.
introduce Diane.
Well, we've invited our dear friend Diane, who's both an author and a horsewoman and a wonderful human being, back to speak with us about her experiences with fire in Northern California. And she is from the area where there are a lot of fires. And in fact, now, Diane, just before we were starting, you were talking about how it's now called fire season there. And in particular, we plan to talk about the aspects of the animals and how fire is impacting the animals, not only our beloved animals in our family, but those others around. And so, I just like to open it up and just see um, how, what was the most compelling experience you had with the animals in some of the experiences you've had in Northern California?
First of all, thank you all. I, I'm very happy to be here with the three of you, dear-hearted sisters. And yes, I'm actually from Northern California. I've been here for over 30 years. And yeah, we have a fire season. And when I first moved here, it was more earthquakes that I was concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but over the years, because of the well, because of many, many elements and many, many reasons, climate change and so forth. Here in California, what happens is we have a lot of rain at this time of year, and the grasses grow very green. Right now, it's very, very green out there. We've had a very wet winter. Grasses grow, and then we have no rain for the summer, this end of the spring, summer, all the way through sometimes until December. And so we are kindling here.
Mm.
And anything can happen, and of course things do. So so your question about the animals, I remember looking at footage in of the fires and recent fires in LA, and I remember my prayer was, may the four-leggeds go swiftly if they're to go, so they don't suffer, because clearly, you know, there's danger for our animal relations. And so, you know, do we want to talk about our pets and our beloved ones that we actually have more capacity to have direct contact with and help them? So I think I'd love to be able to participate in any help for all the animals, but those of us that can do something, I hope we learn and help each other learn how to do more. So I'm here as an ambassador of the horses, since that's my direct experience. I do want to say off the top that I've never been in a fire the way some of my friends have. I've never had to leave a burning house the way some of my friends have. So my prayers to them. And, you know, what that does for the rest of us is either helps us prepare or figure out ways to support each other in those times. And I think maybe you guys are going to be talking about that a little more in another podcast.
Yes.
It's super,
Yes.
super important with trauma and the emotional impact for people and survivor's guilt and all kinds of things. So, but let's get on with the horses. So, I have a horse and he lives in a herd, and there are things that horse people kind of automatically do to help with the survival of their horses. But one of the things that I know I need for my horses, can he get in a trailer? Which people sometimes don't realize, horses sometimes don't know how to do that. And when they're frightened, which they have a capacity to go right into survival, they aren't thinking, they might not get into a trailer in a moment of panic. And there is a story I have of a friend of mine who I don't remember which fire this was, but here, when we know there's fires around, some of us know to put shoe polish and put our phone numbers on our horses' bodies. And the reason why we do that is if they get away, we want to be able to reunite with them. I think you can do chips, but I don't, but I think you can, just the way you can. So you would want to think about that for your cats and your dogs and your guinea pigs and all your dearly beloved four-leggeds. So some way to reunite in the case of separation. And the reason why we do that is because you don't want to put anything on their faces because they could get caught in something because they're panicking. So a lot of stories about horses are, I just opened the gate and I let them go. And they all ran down the freeway and so forth, because they're going to know how to find safety if they can, especially if they're together. So as a herd, because the herd mentality is quite astonishingly brilliant. So a friend of mine, her horse wouldn't load. There were other horses in the trailer, but she just wouldn't load this horse. And my friend, I don't know how she made this decision, but she said, just let him go. I think it was a male horse. Anyway, fast forward, that horse was reunited with her. It ended up in a paddock some miles away, and it survived. So that was that was a huge thing to be able to reconnect if there's separation, and also load. There's another story that I saw on the internet of a young girl in the LA fires that horse wouldn't load, and she got on him bareback, had never ridden this horse before, and rode him 14 miles through a canyon. And that's the thing about the animals, is they actually know when they're being helped, and they will understand that. And so being calm and being very clear in your intention and being calm yourself, they listen to that and they look for that. They look for that guidance. So anyway, those are two stories that might help people. But being ready to leave with horses is quite a lot of work. You have to get your food. You have to have everything ready, and a trailer ready, and the trailer hooked up, and how many horses can fit, and can you really put 5 horses in a trailer? What's only supposed to hold 3? And these are the things that we talk about, and they do it. Most of them know to do it. So do you have questions while I gather more stories?
I just want to say one thing and then Sally jump in,
Yeah.
which is that you're kind of uniquely qualified too, because you do emotional release work and physical release work with horses as well.
Right.
So I really appreciate what you're sharing, which is both your experience as a horsewoman and also from the energetic and safety perspective for the horse itself.
Great.
And I was thinking about the point you made about if you're calm, the
Yes.
horse, and I would say other animals, if
Yeah.
we are calm, our animals will respond to that.
Mhm.
But the question, and I think in doing this podcast and the next one we hope to do, it's most people are not calm in emergency situations.
It's tough.
And certainly, if you translate that to most people are not calm
Mhm.
when there is a fire raging down their street and they're trying to figure out which direction to go to evacuate.
Yeah.
And so, we I think one of our goals of this podcast, and I'm so glad you're talking about it, Diane, is to do the think ahead piece that we don't often like to do. Right? When it's something scary, a lot of us, our go-to is to shut down or to not think about it, or that's not ever going to happen to me, denial. That's not ever going to happen to me. So this podcast is irrelevant. I don't need to listen to this, or, to not have anything to say about what we're asking people to think about, which is to think about that, to think ahead about how you might feel or how you even want to approach things. But I know we're going to talk more about that. But as you were talking, I was thinking, oh, right. In an emergency situation, how calm would we be?
Mhm. It's a really
Well, I think that reflects back to what we've been talking about for the past 3 years,
Yes.
the centering and grounding piece.
Yes.
I must tell you, from my experiences, I've been in a lot of situations where, including a fire, where things were like really chaotic. And I flipped right back into doing the centering and grounding because I know if I panic, I can't think clearly, I can't act clearly. And that is definitely my go-to. So, for those of you who have been listening to us, you know that those 2 pieces were actually in our first and second podcast. And it's something that if you practice every day, when something like this happens, like a fire, trying to evacuate, trying to get your family out, trying to get your pets out, trying to get your horses out, center ground, and it's going to help you think clearly enough to accomplish everything. Fall apart later, but not at the time.
And adding to that, I think that the times that I've been in situations that where I've had to act around horses, I'm thinking especially because what they bring out in me and what animals bring out in me, and maybe this is true for people, is a sense of responsibility. Like your children too, like you just have this clarity in your head that you can't plan for, but you can practice for. So you practice, you get that muscle of being calm in situations that are around you
Yeah.
chaotic,
Yeah.
dangerous, and you suddenly can handle things that you couldn't imagine yourself handling. And I also think there's another story of a that I heard during the fires here one year where a man who had never been near horses saw that someone needed help. The person running around trying to do a lot handed the guy 5 halters, and any one of you would do this, I know. And the guy figured out, I'm going to put these halters on these horses. That's not easy. It has a certain, you have to do from the left, and you have to know where to put the ears and the nose, and they have to put their nose, But he did it because the horses were aware of his calm and his intention.
Yeah.
He put 5 halters, and he walked those horses to wherever that guy was loading up, and
Wow.
everything went smooth as could be. So I think people, you see this too, people just show up. I don't know what that person did in his life to be that calm, but he had some muscle for it
Mm-hmm.
already.
Well put.
It's a really good opportunity to practice your centering and your relaxation,
Mm-hmm.
and that you are not you're not part of what's happening around you. You're within yourself while what's happening is going on around
Right.
you.
Yeah.
Right. That swirling energy is not affecting you
Right.
to the point where you can't function. You've got to hold it out. You're absolutely right, Diane. Get
Yeah,
into your core.
yeah. And there's these instincts. I can't go there, I can't go there, I can't go there, but I can go there, and we do that. We act. It's really quite noble.
Aw.
Yeah. Um, you know, we have fire season here. And there was the first time that I was in experienced that. It's so strange because of course we're getting used to it the way humans do. But I remember I went to a place where a lot of horses, cows, there's farm animals had been relocated in a fairground. And what I can do to help is to offer energy work. And so that's what I did. I went from stall to stall, and just offered a way to help the animals regulate their nervous systems in situations where they were
Yeah.
pretty
Mhm.
frazzled, pretty over the top in activation and sympathetic fight, flight, freeze.
Yeah.
Uh, and so offering that to animals is maybe any one of you could share your experiences with that and how to help animals energetically after they've been through trauma. Yeah. What do you think?
Diane, what
Yeah.
was the primary thing you were feeling with the horses when
Mm,
you started to do your energy work? We always scan, right, to see what's coming off.
Right.
confusion.
Mm.
Mm.
And I think for horses in particular, they're they're about they're so interesting because if they understand something, they relax, even if it's bad news, you know. So they don't know, horses don't have a full frontal cortex, and so they don't have executive function, and they don't have logic, and they can't extrapolate. So you can't say, well, you're going to be fine because it's Tuesday and there's no more fire. You just say, and you can't even say you're okay because they're like, I don't even know what okay means. So you kind of just bring in presence and direct the nervous systems to down regulate. So there are lots of different ways to do that with energy, with herbs, with flower remedies. You guys talk about a lot
Yeah.
here. Um, Certainly, people have been giving horses rescue remedy, and a lot of other animals. There's rescue remedy that's made without alcohol if you want to go there, or for pets and so forth.
Mhm.
I'm sure there's many more herbs that any one of you could share that I don't know about. But down regulating that nervous system and looking, so the first layer is confusion and worry and anxiety. With it, they can't quite name it, but we can just help them find peace in their bodies, even like we just said, where you're in your
Yeah.
peace, even while that's going on around. And some can do it and some can't, depending on how dire their situations are.
Yeah.
I mean, horses even have that on a daily basis. They don't need a fire to feel that way because they just have a really high activation fight, flight, freeze response as
Oh,
prey
I didn't
animals.
know
They're
that.
well, they're prey animals, so they're geared to
Mm.
Oh,
they're geared to
okay.
be in fear and survival.
Right, right,
Right.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that.
It does. Yeah.
Huh.
But they don't do any better or worse than a predator animal. I mean, it's just
Yeah. I appreciate you talking about five flower essences or
mm,
rescue remedy because, that's our immediate go-to in any
Hmm.
situation. I always have rescue remedy pastilles in my bag for humans, but those are alcohol free. And I know it can be so, so helpful when my kitty was about to cross and she had had cancer and she was about to cross. I was feeding her rescue remedy and she just settled right down and was really calm. And just, we both then were able to be more present with each other.
I had another
And
thought too, which is I can't I went away the week that we had these horrific fires down south in LA. And when I came back and entered the herd, my horse lives with now 12 other horses. I was like, something's feeling funky here. They're all a little worried. I could feel sort of like a like a like a buzz a tingling or just an energetic
Mm.
sensation in when I entered the pasture. And I have a tendency, and this happens with people who have been with their animals for a long time, to have pictures passed between my horse and myself.
Mm-hmm.
And he was following me back to the barn, and I said, "What's going on?" And he had a picture of a fire. I thought,
oh,
"Oh my goodness,
Wow.
we humans are walking into this pasture with our fear stories about LA.
Yes.
We were all so impacted,
Yes.
horribly so. And we carried that in, or we talked about it around them, or whatever, and they don't know what the pictures are for.
hmm.
But I went, oh no. I told him, we're not in a fire. We're not going to have a fire. This is not fire. There's no fire now. And let's go eat some grain. And he said, got it. And then that kind of just downregulated. And it was, dispersed. But we have to be careful about what we carry, what pictures we carry with animals too. On the other side of that, we can carry pictures that are bringing calm to them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a certain amount of consciousness of what we're doing around them. So back to being calm
Yeah.
in situations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we realize how much our thoughts
Right.
really impact not just animals, but people. So, there's a lot of research on that that's beginning to show that thoughts have their own energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also there's what I was thinking about when you were talking about that, Diane, was there's a common thread, right? And even though the horses are in Los Angeles area, say, who's to say that their fear and I mean, I'm sure there were horses that didn't survive the fires, you know, does not impact horses who are far away too. I mean, they realize there's a disruption in the field, a serious disruption, and they don't know what it is. So they're picking up on that, and that's why I think it's so critically important for all our animals because they can express. Humans, we can express verbally what we're going through. Well, some of us can, some can't, but for the most part we can. We have that outlet, but our animals don't. So we really have to be tuned into them and what is going on. I mean, when I see Luna looking at me like she's trying so hard to tell me something, I have to really sit quietly for a minute and see what it is. because she just tried so hard. She's just pay attention to me, you know? And I'm sure the horses are doing the same thing. They're looking to you for relief, for guidance, for explanation.
Mm.
You know, and I know you, Diane, you come across as very calm, very confident. I mean, that's who you are. That's who you've always been all the years I've known you. And
you.
I understand why a horse would come up and go, "What the heck is going on?" You know, explain it to me, please.
What's the memo?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
right.
Exactly.
Right. And you know, when you say that, I have to slip over to the human family too, because of course we're
Mm.
impacting each other worldwide right now in such a
Yes.
massive way.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It's so easy to just, tune it all out and shut down because it's a lot. That's true for animals too. The overwhelm can really cause a certain shutdown. And but you're so right. The connectivity over miles and miles and miles and miles is
Sure.
absolutely real for animals. They are in some ways a measurement of what's happening on the earth, and listening and being with them and slowing down with them. We can really learn so much.
Mm.
You
So
know,
I'm so
one of the, oops, sorry, Sally.
Oh no. I was going to say I'm so glad you mentioned that because they can tell us of upcoming things as well.
right.
Exactly.
Yes.
I don't know what you were going to
Mhm.
say, Betty. You might have been wanting to jump in and say kind of the same thing.
No, what I was going to say is, you know, one of the things as some of you may know, I teach Reiki, right? I've been teaching it for years, you know, and other energy healing. And what we say is when you give a treatment, you get a treatment.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, and what you're saying, Diane, is really true. We're all in this swirling chaos right now. You know, everything is topsy turvy, right?
Right.
And in our lives, just in our lives, not, you don't have to be in a fire or a catastrophe, just everything is like, whoa, you know, turn on the news, what's happened now? But if you're working on your pets or your animals and you're giving treatments, believe me, it will calm you down because that energy, remember, the energy goes through you to them. So it really helps when you're working with our four-leggeds. At least it does for me. I know Luna, I give myself Reiki
Absolutely.
every day, but I also treat Luna and I treat Sheba, my kitty. So it makes a big difference because when I'm done with them, all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I don't feel so bad now. You know, I don't feel that
Mhm.
woo that's going on. I don't know if that's been your experience, but it certainly is mine. You know.
Yeah, I agree. I think if people want to help after a fire or a trauma like that, it's definitely to help the animals, as it does help us as well.
Yeah.
It's very reciprocal, you know. And people do, thank goodness people do. There were so many stories, at least in the LA fires, of rescues, and oh my gosh, so many animals were helped and saved. And that's just one incident, one world event. But
Right.
Wondering, and we talked a little bit about this, um, what your sense of that is when you are there, but you're not directly involved in what's happening and the feelings that might bring up for other people who are living even in Northern California, but in Southern California. But what your thoughts about that are? I know you mentioned you had a lot of feelings about not being affected in the same way as
oh, I think, when we were preparing for this podcast, I was feeling like I don't know if I can talk about fire. I haven't been in a fire. So many of my friends have. People have perished. They've lost everything, and I haven't. I have had my go bag. I don't have it ready now. I did, but I haven't lived on that edge. So is this what you mean, Sally? Yeah. So, a certain amount of survivor's guilt, and which I'm really happy to be in touch with because it means it's there and I can work with it. And I feel trauma when it's around me, even if it's happening to me. I feel it as if it's happening to me, just like all human bodies do, whether we know it or not.
Yeah.
And yeah, so um, I think I'm just opening to that. That's true, and I think that's okay. But I want to really understand it more now. What does that mean? And I live in an area where we say, "Oh, there could be a fire here today." It wouldn't happen now because it's green and wet. But so how how do I manage that, and how am I there for the people that have been through it, and what can help?
Yeah.
And I think, owning my own inexperience is helping because it lets them have the truth of their experience. I'm not putting my worry on them. I'm taking it as okay, this is my work. I got to figure this out. If that makes sense.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I think with media, the way that it is,
Mm,
we know a lot about what is going on in the world. And
mm,
unfortunately, a lot of that is very traumatic.
mhm,
And being witness to that, even though
mhm,
you're not actually there or directly involved, also carries a certain amount of guilt that people can potentially feel about, oh, that did not happen to me. And I'm looking at this horrible devastation
mhm,
and, right, relief that it's not happening to you, or relief that you might not have to evacuate your horses, that you can go and be with them and take care of them and not have to evacuate them. But at the same time, thinking about, wow, I feel a little guilty because this is happening to friends or other people, or even people I don't know, but I'm looking at
Yeah.
someone standing in the street,
mhm.
sobbing, looking for their dog
Yeah.
or their cat
Yeah.
Yeah.
or their children,
Ah,
Yes.
mm,
other family members. Where did they go? What happened to them? And right, being relieved that it's not you, but some of us also carry that level of guilt that is, okay, I feel a little guilty because I'm so fortunate.
Yeah.
And you bring that up, and I think it's something we don't often tap into.
yeah, these things are hard to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yes, it is.
it's important for the greater good to bring it out, I think. And if fire is an ambassador of change, or what are you, is that agency of change? Is that the phrase you all use?
Change agent. Yeah.
It's an agent of
All of
change.
the above.
Fire.
Yeah. Because fires are powerful. They can be both devastating and also eventually there can be recovery out of that as well. But powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a woman here I know who's uh, I've become a fire chief, and she's also a horsewoman, and I admire her so much. I think there's something about it that we want to touch the power, but we also want to understand it, and we want to, I don't know, it's a very ancient wisdom, I'd say, on so many levels.
I agree.
To embody that aspect of fire
Mhm.
is not easy, and most of us
Yeah.
don't even think about it. I mean, I'm not even sure how we can pull this together because I sense that we could keep on talking for much,
Oh,
much
we
longer and delve into many other aspects of fire. And
you bet.
I personally appreciate that you were willing to share this and that we could look at
Mhm.
a perspective that's
Yeah.
not often addressed, and that is, the four-leggeds,
Mm.
right? Well, and,
Yeah.
maybe your pet is a winged one, right?
Mhm.
Is letting that bird out of the cage so that it doesn't burn up in a fire.
Mm,
Absolutely.
mm,
And if you let it out of the cage, will you ever see it again?
Right.
But
right.
but I
Choice
think,
points.
yeah, I think one of the things we alluded to, and maybe that we wanted to look at, not just in this podcast, but certainly in the next podcast, is for our wisdom practice, we invite you to consider
Mm.
looking ahead at if you have animals.
Sorry.
Oh no, that's okay.
That's a quack. That's my quacking phone, especially.
If you have animals, right,
I love
as we've
it.
been talking about, to think about that. What would you do? Do you have a plan? And, what would you plan and how would you think about that? And to just invite you to think about that ahead of time. And I know, Betty, you might want to say more about that because Betty's been our go-to in thinking about, go bags for your animals. And in talking ahead of time, Diane, you laughed and said, oh, I have a go bag for my horses. I don't know that I have one for myself, but I
I
have one
know.
for my
Yes.
So let's
animals.
make that
I
better.
know,
Right, right.
I know what I need to put together to think about if I had to evacuate my horse or the other 11 horses that are living in the herd where your horse lives. Do you know where to go and how to do that? So
Right.
we're just inviting you all to think about that ahead of time.
Right. Agreed.
And that is one of the things that I think we're planning on talking about. Go bags themselves, the basic go bag. There's like 20 million YouTube videos on it. What you need, and you have to pick what's important to you. Ours will have a little different spin because we're going to talk about the animals, but we're also going to talk about what I call a holistic go bag. I keep one in my car actually,
Yeah.
which there's a story behind that, but and it has the things in it that I would use in an emergency that you can't usually get, but things that do work. So we will be talking about that, I believe, in our next podcast.
Mhm.
Um,
So, Sally, thank you for that invitation to our listeners to think ahead
yeah,
and to feel into and think about anything that would be for their pet's comfort and safety and ongoing well-being.
yeah.
That's their pet or their, whoever they have a relationship with. I want to just add one thing here, which is many of you will have listened to podcast number 31, in which we introduced Diane. And among other things, she's a marvelous author. And so look at podcast number 31. And there you'll hear an in-depth interview about a book that we recommend most highly. It's called Path to the Priestess Temple. Diane is the author. Diane, for those who can see on YouTube, would you please hold up a cover for
Yeah.
us?
Yes.
Ah, yes, there we go.
Okay.
Very powerful.
Mm.
Are there a couple of sentences you'd like to share about the book?
This is a book that came to me in a dream, and it's about three modern day women who have the same dream about an ancient priestess in Malta who has prophesized that the sacred teachings of the sacred feminine are sort of fading through the centuries, which we are firsthand experiencing, as I add a side comment.
Yeah.
And so the three women go to Malta and sort of discover what it is that they've forgotten and relearn, and they remember, and they bring it forward into their lives, and they become the path to the priestess temple. They are the temples.
And
So
that is beautiful. Thank you.
yeah,
And
well,
that was my experience. I've read it through several times, and it's a core book for me. And
thank
so
you.
I really appreciate that you turned that dream into such a tangible reality and story that we could all read. It's available, I know, on Amazon, but do you have other sources you like to refer people to?
Right now that's the best source. It is
Okay.
an ebook form too.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Highly recommend. Just so, so notable. Really good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for being here with us. It's been such a good conversation. We really love and appreciate you.
Thank you.
Betty,
I
would you
think
like to? Go ahead.
this relates back to what we're trying to do with our podcast. You know, we're bringing forth Oceana's teachings, how she lived her life, um, our own collective life wisdom as crones. And you have seen that here today for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely, as we bring it all in. And of course, our interesting guests who we interview, which today is Diane. You're part of our community. So you're really the fourth pillar. Everybody out there who's listening to us, who's supporting us, you can find us on YouTube and Facebook and, you know, all the social media platforms, into Instagram, LinkedIn. And please don't hesitate to communicate with us. We have a webpage, twocronesandamicrophone.com. You can sign up for our newsletter, which Sally has written beautifully.
Yes.
She is definitely one of our wordsmiths. And we ask you to just let us know. Are you enjoying the podcast? What would you like us to talk about? We'll be happy to view that and bring it forth.
Thanks, buddy. And please spread the word. If you like us, Jen, let us know, like us, and also share with friends and family, because we feel like we have an in-depth and wise and funny and caring perspective. And we'd like to see that get spread around. So thank you for your support right now. And we appreciate any other support you can offer.
Speaking of support, I'd like to thank the Minerva Educational Wellness Treatment Center.
Oh, there we go. Yes.
Where you can reach us at minervaed.com for our different classes, including Reiki classes that we teach.
And also a goddess series that I teach.
That's right. Linda's goddess series is coming up. Also, Franny's photography. Franny's our producer. She does a great job. And she wears many hats, actually.
She sure does.
So look her up also. You can find her on social media. Well, I think it's time for us to wrap this up.
I know.
It was really interesting. Diane, thank you so much. Really, I learned a lot.
Oh, well, I'm honored to be here. I hope that it helped somebody, and more than one somebody. I'm so glad, Betty, that you kind of led us into the four-leggeds and the care of our animals in events and traumatic events. That's really important. So on behalf of them, I'm glad that we were able to do this today.
Thank you. Sally, you're on mute.
Us learning about the wisdom of the horses.
Yes.
And I've always associated horses, right, with great strength and their willingness to work with human beings and carry us forward, and things that horse brings. So it's really was lovely to hear about it from your perspective. Thank you. You're
welcome. I could talk about that for days on end.
Just lovely. All right. So remember, go out there and find your glimmer. Remember our podcasts on grounding and centering. Really key. We started with those two for a reason.
Is there anything else you wanted to add, Diane?
No, just thank you and blessings.
And remember always, we invite you to walk in beauty and to remember the beauty in the world around you. Kidishte, all is made beautiful.
Thank you.
Hi, if you're enjoying Two Crones and a Microphone, please like this video and hit the subscribe button. Enjoy timeless wisdom from modern times, all served up by women in the know.